Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the HGLRC Sector 150 DJI edition. This is the 4S version, powered by 1408 3600 kV motors, HQ 2.9 by 2.9 four-bladed props, Zeus 35 flight controller, which is 3 to 6S compatible. The ESC is rated up to 35 amps. I have the Caddx Vista with the DJI camera. Mine is the FR Sky version, so it has the FR Sky XM Plus. We have a 35 volt capacitor right here, large battery pad and strap for your battery mounting, TPU print to hold your antennas, including the Vista antenna, as well as your control link, or you could do crossfire down here. It comes with prop guards for safe flying. You get an extra battery strap, extra props, TPU prints to protect the end of your arms, a stand to mount a GoPro or other HD camera to. It goes right here on top. Or you can use this adjustable mount, which is also included. Get a baggie of M2 5mm screws. I'm using most of them because I don't have on the prop guards. A bag of M2 9mm screws. These are for use with the prop guards. You get a wiring guide, instruction manual for your receiver, a little bit of instructions on the Vista unit, quality assurance card, and stickers. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting 150mm. Bottom plate is 3mm thick, top plate is 2mm thick. It weighs 191 grams. I flew it on this 4S all-line 850 milliamp battery, which brings the weight up to 288 grams. With the prop protection, it weighs 316 grams. With mine having the Vista edition in it, it means that there's about 15 to 20 seconds of arm time that you don't see. That is when I'm doing my camera setup, I'm doing my sync clap, so that you can hear what it sounds like. This flight is without prop guards. I will show you a sample of a flight footage with prop guards. I had a few flights, and it feels like I'm oftentimes complaining about the wind, but this was a really calm day, and I flew a bunch of different stuff on this day because it was so calm. In the wind, when I did fly this with the prop guards, you'll get a sample of it. You interpret for yourself what you think of that. I am also not flying this with a load, meaning I don't have an external HD camera on this. This is just the machine itself, so we don't have that extra weight. And this is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag sort of flight, and I'm a little bit confused as to, well, I understand the prop guards. It gives the ability to do sort of cinematic sort of flying, especially if you're around people, you have that extra prop protection, or if you're inside, you're protecting the components of inside from prop strikes. And I think with DJI stuff and doing close proximity, it has quite a bit of advantage because the clarity in the image. Also, the video link is actually very, very strong. And you'll see it in this footage. You'll see where I decide after I've flown this thing a number of times that I'm going to do kind of a mixed flight. I've mentioned that once already, but here in a few moments we're going to kind of go faster, and you are limited on camera angle, unfortunately, unless you modify the mount of the camera. The camera itself, you know, that DJI camera is kind of square, kind of blocky. When you try to lean it up, the bottom part of the camera comes in against the standoff, so you're very limited. I am flying with the maximum camera angle, which isn't a whole lot, but I'm also going to speed up in this flight, and there's a surprise in here of the punch-outs. The punch-outs are very exciting. They are throw you back in your chair sort of exciting, and that was something that I really enjoyed. It actually threw me off. Every time I flew this thing, I would get surprised by those punch-outs. You'll see it where, especially those people that have seen my flights before and they come to the channel on a regular basis, which by Google Analytics is only about half the people, but so half the views come from people who are subscribed. Maybe those people who aren't subscribed do regularly visit the channel. But anywho, you'll see me a little bit unsteady, and you'll see that flying at this low camera angle and still doing more aggressive flight means two things. Maybe my flight isn't as good as you might think it should be. Also, my angle when I approach those dives isn't quite how it normally is. And that low camera angle, it's an adjustment because it's not very much. And we'll take a closer look at that back at the desk. That's really the only topic I have to discuss back at the desk. The construction is solid. I don't have any problems with how they put it together. Solder joints look good. Everything is kind of what you would expect from HGLRC. I've had a number of models from HGLRC, and I've always been pleased with them. I think in this particular case, I'm just a little bit confused on what I would use this for. It has the ability to do that slower flying that I started this footage with, but it's got so much power and get up and go that we're kind of limited by because of the camera and the standoffs. Maybe we just need to get a longer mount. It is a TPU mount that mounts the camera and it goes around the standoffs. Maybe a longer section of that would allow us to back the camera away from the standoffs and then get more up tilt if that's what we desire. But a lot of people fly freestyle with relatively little camera angle. And maybe this extra power that we have will allow it to really manage carrying an HD camera of some sort, manage that weight, that additional weight. So you got to see a few of those punch outs. Even if you're not interested in this quad, did you expect those sort of punch outs from this sort of quad? That's my question to you, because I did not. And, you know, I've made, what, 700 videos, so I assume that that's about at least 400 quads over the course of the last 4+ years. This is the only one that I've been really surprised by those punch outs. And I want to get your take, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have the same amount of experience I do, or maybe even more, with flying different quads, with flying in general. And when you started this video, what did you expect to see? We go ahead and head back to some more slow, cruisy flight that is cinematic. This one is going to be more expensive. You know, we've talked about this in the past. Anytime you put DJI equipment in the quad, it tends to bump up the price anywhere from $100 to $150. It really varies from machine to machine. You don't have to get this quad with the DJI equipment. They have a version that is analog that you can get HD recording on board with. I think they're using the Ratel in that particular version. I mentioned it in the video. The only differences outside of the cameras that you get is the motors. Are they 4S motors or are they 6S motors? So if you want even more punch, I guess 6S would be the way to go. HGLRC has their own batteries as well. You can pick up some of those, the 6S batteries. I have flown the smaller versions. I think it was the 300 6S and the 450 6S on the channel on the Petrol 132, I believe it was. That was a 6S version. It was a little 3-inch quad. Much lighter version of that. And speaking of light, because of the weight of this won't come in under the 250 gram limit. So those that are looking for a 250 gram or under quad, this one won't apply. And how much of you are impacted by that? That's another curiosity. I know we have a lot of friends that come from all over the world that like to fly, and especially I think like to fly micros, because most micros come in under the 250 gram limit. So I think it's something that I haven't really discussed with too many people in the comment section of videos, is kind of get an idea for how many people are impacted that. I know the regulations vary all over the world, and abiding by those regulations can also vary quite a bit as well. So if you want to let me know if you're impacted by the 250 gram limit, I'd sure be willing to take in that information and keep that in my mind as I look at products that are going to be coming to the channel. We're going to be wrapping up the flight here. We'll come in for a landing after I struggle to get down just a touch, with a flight that's going to almost be 7 minutes on that 850 milliamp battery. And you can use a bigger battery if you choose. So as we landed, I talked about this was the battery that I'm flying. I don't think this thing would have any problems carrying a 1,000 milliamp battery, maybe even 1,100. I don't tend to go that big with my battery purchases because of the nature of this channel. I usually do micros, 3-inch or less. Every once in a while, I'll dabble into the 4-inch, but I definitely don't get into the 5-inch arena. So if you wanted to fly something like this with a bigger battery, I think it will handle it just fine. I don't think it'll even hardly throw off the tune, but it might, depending upon how specific a tune you're looking for. I hope I can show this effectively here. I don't know with the lighting. Hopefully you can see with the camera how it's real square and boxy. When you try to lean the camera back, the camera comes in behind the standoffs, and so it hits, well, first it hits the rubber of the TPU mount, and even if that were smaller, we would be hitting the standoffs. So our camera angle is going to be limited by the length of distance between the screw mount and wherever the post is. So if you wanted to get more camera angle out of this, and you have a 3D printer, or you're a 3D print designer, you could make something that extended this back a couple of millimeters, and then maybe slide the camera up on the post so you don't get much in view, and then you could tilt the camera back even more. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Their construction, as I said in the flight footage, I think their construction is of good quality. It does have an XT60 for a battery connection, and because I do micros, I'm usually doing XT30, so you'll note that I made a little adapter here. So keep that in mind if you're purchasing this. What kind of batteries do you have, and what's their connector type? I guess if I have to get picky, most of these companies are using stiff wires to put their capacitor on, and I do find that they are as well. So this doesn't waggle around or shake around in here. Something that was curious to me is I don't remember the conversation about this, but it came with an FR Sky, and I kind of hoped or wanted to bind it up to my DJI radio so I could just fly it with DJI equipment. It doesn't appear to be wired, or I wasn't able to make the Betaflight changes to where I could bind it. Well, I could bind it. The Vista unit will bind as long as it's got power, but binding it and getting the flight controller and Betaflight to see the receiver of the Vista unit, I wasn't able to do. So if you don't need an external receiver, say you have the DJI goggles and radio, just order the unit without a receiver. It comes with those nice accessories that we talked about in the quick roll, with arm protection, a camera mount. You have the 3D or the adjustable camera as well. So if you have one of those mounts attached to your camera, you can use that for getting your camera angle just like you want it. We do have soft mounting here down on the Zeus 35 flight controller. It's not the softest soft mounting, but the flight footage I thought looked pretty clean. I guess it's another question I should ask of you that have that eagle eye of how steady or non-jello-y did the flight footage look to you. That was a very calm day. It's one of the best days I've had as far as wind goes, so I would like some input on that as well. If you get the plug-and-play version of this from HGLRC, I see the price is at $168.99. If you get the plug-and-play version of this, which oddly, on their website, they show the Air unit in it. That comes in at $324.99. The Air unit would have the most consistent HD recording. So if you're going to be basing your flight and the recording and redistribution off of the camera footage, that would be a better way to go than the Vista, because the Vista is recording in the goggles, so you do get some of that pixelation in the goggles. For general flight purposes, I think the Vista still works very, very well. I don't even see a price listed on the HGLRC website for the Vista unit, but I will try to find that and find the page, and then I will put that link down in the video description. 7-minute flight time on the 850 milliamp battery I was flying it on, and kind of a mixed bag sort of flying, so that's really, really good. I would expect if you're doing very slow, cruisy cinematography sort of flying, that you would get 9 minutes, maybe even more. And then you could pump up to a 1,000 or 1,100 milliamp battery, get 11, 12, 13 minutes. So that's just speculation. I didn't test those different batteries. But if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.